He said, when you're working on it, you're unclean. You're going to have to scrape it all down. You're going to have to carry it out to an unclean place outside the community. And you're going to have to redo this wall. And a week later, I'm going to come back and look at it, and if it's not there anymore, your house is going to be clean. You're going to have to bring an offering for the cleansing, but it'll be clean. Now, if it is broken out again, he said, we're going to have to tear your house down. And you're going to have to build you a clean house. Now, what you're looking at here is clean and unclean. If I am clean and I touch somebody unclean, it makes me unclean. If you're unclean, you can't worship God. You can't go before God when you're unclean. You can't eat unclean things because you are a holy people. Now, my main lesson today is we don't hold by that now. You know, we had a discussion in class about taking things in the Old Testament and saying it applies to us today, just like Israel was God's chosen in the Old Testament. You know, we're chosen today. You know, Israel is chosen today. We are not under the oppression and the requirements of the old law. Okay, now go to Mark chapter 7. I had one of my students the other day ask me, he said, do we keep the diet of the Israelites? We have to realize the Muslims keep the dietary laws of the Jews. They will not eat pork. The Muslims have to have what's called a halal diet. It has to be like we've all heard of kosher diet, which is a Jewish diet, which is, well, the Muslims have it. They have something like that. Okay, Mark chapter 7, beginning in verse 14. Now, this is during the ministry of Jesus. It is included in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, parallel passage. It says, Mark chapter 7, verse 14, when Jesus had called the multitude to himself, he said to them, hear me, everyone, and understand. There is nothing that enters a man from outside which can defile him, or make him unholy, make him unclean. But the things which come out of him, those are the things that defile a man. If anyone has ears to hear, let him hear. When Jesus had entered the house away from the crowd, his disciples asked him concerning the parable. So Jesus said to them, are you thus without understanding also? Do you not perceive that whatever enters a man from outside cannot defile him, because it does not enter his heart, but his stomach, and is eliminated, thus purifying all foods. Okay, now notice what makes something unclean to us is something that enters the heart and defiles the heart. The heart is the thinking apparatus in you. You know, in the old days they thought it was the heart. I love you with all my heart. The heart's a pump, okay? Your brain is what is the center of your emotions, the center of your intelligence, like that. What are things that enter the brain and defile the brain? Drugs, alcohol. Okay? If something takes control of me and I lose my inhibitions, it affects my heart. And he said, what comes out of a man, that defiles a man. And he gives us some examples. For from within, out of the heart of men proceed evil thoughts, adulteries, fornications, murders, thefts, covetousness, wickedness, deceit, lewdness, an evil eye, blasphemy, pride, foolishness. All these evil things come from within and defile a man. Each one of those could be a separate lesson. Because in so many cases, we in our society don't even know what those words mean. But when something comes inside me and causes me to do things that are wrong, that is what defiles me. Okay, now go to Acts chapter 10. Acts chapter 10. Now this is where the church is growing. It has gone to the Jews. It has gone to the Jewish proselytes. It has gone to the Samaritans, but it has not gone to the Gentiles. The door has not been opened yet for the Gentiles. Cornelius, a devout man, a Gentile, has a vision from God. An angel from God tells Cornelius, send for Peter, and when he comes, he will tell you words which will save you. So Cornelius sent some soldiers to give Peter. Right before they get to the house that Peter is staying in, Peter is waiting to eat. And he's up on the roof of the house. They have a flat roof house. He's up there relaxing. You know, I love to take a nap after I eat. He's taking a nap before he eats. He has a vision from God. And now this is all in Acts chapter 10, and you need to read it. Acts chapter 10, this big sheet comes down. And when it comes down out of heaven, the sheet opens up. And it is full of all kinds of animals, clean and unclean. And God says, Peter, kill and eat. He said, Lord, you know I have never eaten unclean. Anything unclean. God says, whatever the Lord has made is clean. Okay? Well, this happens 3 times. And God says to Peter, do not call anything unclean that I have made. And then Peter wakes up. Well, these guys are outside knocking on the door, wanting to come in. They said, we're looking for Peter. Is he in here? Yes. Now, Peter, a Jew, is commanded to stay away from the Gentiles. Peter goes down, and Peter looks at these men, and he said, God has shown me that I should not call any man common or unclean. He said, y'all stay here, and I will go with you in the morning. Now in the morning they go, and Peter goes to Cornelius. Cornelius describes what has happened. Cornelius talking to Peter. Well, and I love this part, Acts 10 and verse 33. The whole house is full. Cornelius said, we are all present before God to hear all the things commanded you by God. We have all come to hear what you're going to tell us. Peter says in verse 34, in truth I perceive that God shows no partiality. But in every nation, whoever fears him and works righteousness is accepted by him. So, in Acts chapter 10, whatever God has created is clean for us. Now, Acts chapter 15. Acts chapter 15. The people that wanted to make Jews out of all the Christians wanted to bind all of the Old Testament law on them. But in Acts chapter 15, the church leaders get together, the apostles are there, the inspired teachers. And James, the brother of Jesus, says, verse 19 and 20, these are the only restrictions we have on what we eat. Therefore I judge that we should not trouble those from among the Gentiles who are turning to God. But we write to them to abstain from things polluted by idols, from sexual immorality, from things strangled, and from blood. You know, when we eat, we cannot eat blood. That is even from the time of Noah. You realize until after Noah, man did not eat flesh? Man was a vegetarian. But when God gives them the right to eat flesh, God says you cannot eat anything with the blood in it. You have to drain the blood out because the blood is the life. We cannot eat something with the blood still in it. That's why we don't eat something that has been strangled. That's why we don't go to Louisiana and eat the blood, what do they call that? Blood pudding. Okay? False religions, blood is a very important part of their religion. If you realize the Native Americans, when they used to hunt, I am told, I'm not a Native American, but they would drink part of the blood of their kill so that they would assimilate those characteristics. But we do not eat blood. We do not eat things that have been offered to idols. Now, if you remember, the peace offering of the Israelite was a fellowship meal. Well, part of the worship of an idol was, I will bring the meat, and we will worship our God while we eat this meat. So, oh man, I got too much here. Go to Colossians 2. Colossians 2. He talks about things that are offered to an idol and things like this. The thing is, 1 Corinthians chapter 8 says, part of the thing when you go to the market to buy your food, the idol priest a lot of times would receive more meat than they could eat. So they would take the meat to the market and they would sell it. 1 Corinthians chapter 8, Paul writes and tells the Christians, don't be afraid of what you buy in the market. If you buy it in the market, you can eat it because you don't know if it came from the idol temple or not. You can do that. But he said, do not go to the temple and participate in their worship to their God by eating the meat that is there. He said, if you go to somebody's house and they're giving you a meal and they said, well, this meat was offered to such and such a God yesterday. He said, don't eat that. If you know for sure it was used to worship an idol, do not eat that meat. He said, even though you know that there is no true God but the one God, he said, don't eat meat that you know has been offered to an idol.